Welcome to Nuanced Beauty. This podcast is intended to be a spot where my husband Bill and I will capture some complex thoughts and challenge us to hold to our opinions loosely so that we can see the beauty in others and the beauty in ourselves. I want to challenge us to dive deeper into those everyday topics and those sticky topics that we might shy away from, or we might bulldoze over others with our opinions. Because I think there's wisdom in this idea that if we all thought exactly the same, there would be no need for anyone else. So let's have a conversation and let's get nuanced. Hi guys.
Hey everybody.
Welcome back to Nuanced Beauty.
How was your Mother's Day?
Yes, how was my Mother's Day?
How am I doing?
Good. Yeah, so our topic this week is Mother's Day. Mine was fine. You made breakfast for me, and that was it. And
That was a normal
oh my
Sunday.
gosh, yeah, and Zeke brought home a little terracotta pot with marigold seeds, and it had the soil too. And so this was on Friday. We went ahead and we planted these marigold seeds in the pot. And then we proceeded about our evening. And about an hour later, I don't know if it was related to screen time or what, but household digressed real quick. And Zeke told me he was so angry that he could smash my marigold pot.
I'll take your marigold pot back and smash it.
So, yeah, happy Mother's Day
Happy
to
Mother's
me.
Day to you.
So yeah, we thought we would take an episode to talk in the spirit of nuance about Mother's Day. Um, as like everyone knows, I feel like every holiday has the potential to be a big celebration, and then there's also the potential that something didn't go great or life isn't going according to plan and the holiday is not amazing. This kind of ties back into episode 2 about how's your Christmas and how's your holiday season and how stuff in life can
And
be
if mom
hard.
ain't happy, are you happy?
Yes, that was the last episode.
That was the last episode, so it works out well.
But
But
yeah.
what was interesting, I think, to us, and something that I think grinds my gears a little bit, is every Father's Day at church, the message is always, now we all know that some people have difficult relationships with their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about that and let's kind of be okay in that conversation.
And how like God the Father is not your earthly father.
Exactly.
And there's a difference there. Yeah.
But on Mother's Day, it's always, aren't moms great? Let's all be thankful for moms. And Mother's Day can be hard for people too.
Yeah, I thought like 1 year back at Trinity, they gave everyone a single long stem rose, and they simply said like this is to represent all mothers or whatever. So it was trying to not say like Happy Mother's Day. It's like the mothers will become mothers and those that weren't, and those that are like on earth like function as moms but didn't actually like give birth to someone.
That was a very challenging sermon because he talked about a passage of scripture that I didn't prepare to have memorized, but it talks about women being having salvation through childbirth, and for women who can't have children,
Right. So are you
chose
saying
not to? Are you saying that they are not saved in some way? And he was talking about motherhood as an institution of female leadership, referring to it as motherhood rather than the actual physical act of bearing a child. And I don't know from a theological sense, from a hermeneutic sense, if that is the right interpretation of that, but
or what that passage says exactly.
But in short, every woman got a flower.
Yes, everybody got a flower. But yeah, I was thinking through this episode because so this is a longer story, but back on July 4th, we moved, from the Northwest to the Southeast. And the Southeast, at least where we're at, people are patriotic. And most people, I think, still appreciate the country. And they're thankful for the country. And whether, they're too national focused and too whatever, that's not the point I'm making. um, the point that I'm making is in the Northwest, it was like awkward on July 4th in a way because like not everybody wants to celebrate the fact that we're an independent country. And a lot of people are really like rubbing their noses at the country and like how we were founded on all
Well,
these bad things and
right
how we're not a good
there's
country.
a tension of wanting to acknowledge ways that our country has, not lived up to
Been
its own.
prosper or
Well,
did a good more
I think the best way of saying it is it hasn't lived up to its own ideals.
yes.
Uh, eh,
And versus like throwing the whole like country
Baby out
out
with the
with it.
bathwater.
Yes.
Can I celebrate the ideals that the country is founded on, and also acknowledge where we haven't lived up to those
And where we could
ideals?
do better.
Again,
Yeah, like
again,
and continue forward.
whole nother podcast episode.
Yes,
But
but how does that tie into Mother's Day? Well, it ties in because I think that we're in this culture right now that is in the midst of any holiday and like any celebration, people are trying to take a minute to acknowledge that things are not great for everyone in all circumstances. And we're more sensitive to emotions and we're more sensitive to traumas or
mhm,
troubles and hardships. And in the midst of that, we sometimes maybe get too caught in a sad spiral,
mhm.
like, or I have to take time to acknowledge all these things before I can celebrate, or I'm not doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, I was just listening to the Brewers broadcast, and they were talking about a player whose mother had passed.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I'm saying, oh yeah, why can't we acknowledge her on Mother's Day the way we acknowledge her on Father's Day? But there's also the opposite side of things where we just like delve into all the trauma of this holiday,
Yeah,
and then be like, you're not allowed
to
to.
just
How dare you
celebrate.
say Happy Mother's Day to me?
Yeah,
Do you
or
not
like,
know all my past history and trauma?
uh huh.
How dare you not know all of that?
Yeah, yeah, and um, with that, like, for someone who Mother's Day is hard, can you give that person rather than having that whiplash reaction like Bill just said out loud, um, can you give someone the benefit of a doubt that they didn't mean to cause you harm or to make you uncomfortable by saying happy Mother's Day? Or like, I don't know, like, if you want to be vulnerable and you want to be a little more transparent with said person and share the hardship that you're going through, you could. And then it's also okay if that's like a treasure and a treasure chest, like that experience or that tarnished relationship isn't something that everyone needs to know about. um, so there's something there. But I was thinking through like all the ways why for those that have actually some pretty tight knit families that I envy, and um, like that Mother's Day is legit, like it's a celebration and it's good. Like I want you to enjoy that goodness. Like I don't want you to feel like you shouldn't enjoy it because everybody else has it worse than you or whatever, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Um
Yeah,
but
you shouldn't feel guilt for not having trauma
yes,
around the family.
yes, and that is my concern, is that when people are coming from a hard spot to kind of impose your difficulty on someone, I think that's where it crosses a line. And I think the only way to, like, I don't know, maybe really communicate it well is person on person and not not via an online platform.
Hmm.
Podcast maybe included. At least it's a longer format, but it's still like it doesn't leave room for human relationship and nuance. But for those that like really celebrate and appreciate Mother's Day, I was thinking through like where someone else would fall into the category of Mother's Day isn't as, amazing for them. And one area is miscarriages and abortions and adoptions. Like, if you struggled to conceive and you ended up adopting your kids, or you are the adopted child,
Hmm.
like you want to honor the person who has been your parent here, but was not like actually your mom who gave birth to you.
And that's been the tension of my life around Mother's Day. even while my mom was still alive, as my parents divorced,
Mhm.
and I had a stepmother I was very close with growing up,
Mhm.
but I never called mom because I
Mhm.
had a mom. That was her name, and it was never meant to be a hurtful thing. It's just my mom's name is mom, and my
And your
stepmom's
step
name, and she has a name. But I defy you to go to the Walgreens, card aisle, or last time we went to Target and there was a ton of people swarming
the flowers and
the
cards.
flowers and cards.
Yeah.
Um, I defy you to go find a card that doesn't have the word mom on it.
Mhm.
So it's mom, you're great, or mom, thank you, mom. It's all mom centric. So I always like struggled to like find a good card
Uh-huh.
to use. So how do you, as a child with multiple maternal figures,
Mhm.
maybe one you're close with, maybe one you're not close with. You mentioned adoption, where there's this person who was a mother to me, but I have a mom out there somewhere,
Yeah.
whether I know her or not.
And you have maybe a longing in your heart to know who was your biological mother, and you just don't know, but at the
Hmm.
same time you honor and love and
Yeah,
appreciate this
and
earthly motherly.
I'd been through my life very cavalier about that because I didn't really know my mom that well. I was very young when my parents split, and I didn't really realize that she mattered to me until she passed.
Uh-huh.
I was so hurt, and I'm like, you remember me asking, why do I feel this way?
Yeah. Yeah, because you didn't know her. So
Hmm.
like how do you reminisce about someone who's passed, like the stark reality of losing
How
a
do
loved
you
one.
mourn someone that you never really had?
Yeah.
Now that was something I had to work through, but now Mother's Day continues to be difficult
Yeah.
because I call my stepmom
Uh-huh.
on Mother's Day, and there's always this kind of tension of I don't
Yeah.
know. I haven't worked through it enough to enunciate it, but that's just an example of Mother's Day being challenging for some
Right.
folks.
And like and likewise, for me, my parents split at a very young age as well. And I spent somewhat 50-50 living with each of my parents. Excuse me. And I mean, I would say overall, I appreciate my parents for different things, but I definitely did not see eye to eye with my mom through most of my upbringing. And it was a very tense relationship. And so, um, I had to work through that. And so I would say even in the past decade, we've come a long ways, and I don't feel the level of animosity that I felt in one season, but I still have this weird, I don't call and chit chat with my mom every day or every week. And I don't like I we saw her when we were both in Seattle for a short time, but
A short time. She lived with us for 2 years.
exactly. She lived with us for 2 years, but, before that, she was in a different state and we were in our state, and, we didn't bond in my college years. We felt very, separate, like, it felt like I was living my life and she continued living her life as well, and so, to, acknowledge the bond, that you have with your parents and to acknowledge how much you are like your parents despite what you, like, think you are or aren't. There's a lot there, right?
Hmm.
And it's it can be, I don't know, it could be a tough day for folks. And then for those who lost a mom, right? Like, I can think of a friend in particular who lost her mom to a fight of cancer this year. So this will be the first Mother's Day. And I can think of another person who has passed, but um, had several kids who were in and out of jail.
Hmm.
So imagine going into Mother's Day and it's like, am I going to get a call from my son in prison today or am I not?
Hmm.
Um, and so it's not always sunshine and flowers. Um, but also like how like that's where the nuance and the tension comes, is appreciating it for what it is for some folks, and also like, I don't
Well,
know.
and I just had this thought of if you look through our traditional holidays, traditional non-traditional holidays. Hey, whole podcast episode we did on that.
Uh-huh.
You can somewhat sort our cultural holidays into two categories. There's celebrations of life and there's lamentations of death.
Okay.
Because there's things like Memorial Day,
Uh-huh.
and things like that, where we take a moment to honor those who have died, those who have fallen,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Halloween, it's technically
Oh, yeah.
the Dia de los Muertos, like that.
Yeah.
There's uh, holidays that are days of mourning,
Yes.
that are ceremonial days of mourning, and
Right.
then there's ones that are celebrations of life, things like Christmas, things like Thanksgiving,
And
things that
even, July 4th would be like the celebration of life of a country,
yes,
right? Like a
exactly.
metaphorical life.
But
Mother's
Good
Day, Father's
Friday
Day.
is in a way a day of mourning.
Uh-huh.
And so what we're the tension I think we're talking about is in days like Mother's and Father's Day.
Where it's supposed to be the life side,
Well,
maybe the positive.
I what does it mean to be supposed to be something? That sinks. People are kind of observing holidays in two different ways. And
Yes.
so how do you live in that tension of like, well, this is a day that's a complicated day for me, that I got to sit and kind of sit in this space where I've lost my mom.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but everyone's wearing pretty dresses and taking pictures together at church this morning.
Yeah.
So can I laugh with those who laugh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the people laughing, can you mourn with those who mourn? And can we do this at the same time
Yeah.
and not say you're doing it wrong?
Yes. Yeah. And
Or
that's the beautiful part. Like,
Mhm.
rather than lashing out and saying the other person is doing it wrong, like, yeah, laugh with those who laugh, mourn with those who mourn. Um, and then and like leave that space for connection. Maybe you could leave that space to do both. Like,
Yeah,
be aware of the the person you're with, right? Like the relationship that you're with and who you're celebrating with, or who you're talking to that day. And if you happen to know their past when it comes to family, their family dynamics, whether, family planning on their end or the relationship with their parents or
hmm
not.
well, we had a friend who went through a number of miscarriages, and
Multiple. Yeah.
well, yeah, but that was
Yes.
some, and
I don't know which one you're
you have
referring
more
to,
friends
but
than me.
I'll think about it.
But there was before they did have children, I made it a point to like wish them a happy Mother's Day,
Yeah.
and for him a happy Father's
And
Day,
do it in a
and
kind,
a kind,
like
um, uh,
compassionate meeting them, not
in
like,
a somewhat somber way, kind of showing them, acknowledging that I see you
yeah,
in the place that you are, and acknowledging who you are as a parent
yeah,
who's lost a child, uh, but also understand it's a complicated thing.
yeah. And that's the sweet part. That's the sweet part about connection.
Hmm.
And that is where, like, I don't know, the beauty of like the bridge, like, I don't know, leaving your side of the bridge down for connection,
Hmm.
and not getting so caught in your opinion, or you're like,
Hmm.
like, don't make me feel bad because you're having a bad day, or like, woohoo,
Yeah,
everybody party.
the,
Like,
the fact is the world is big enough for both of those feelings, and they're both very big feelings.
yeah,
And the world is big enough for both. Or from the Christian paradigm that you and I would come from, would say God is big enough
yeah,
for both of those things to exist at the same time. Both things can be true at the same time.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
the hardest thing for me about Mother's Day, though, is that I am just such a good husband. That you talk to other dads and like, oh yeah, I let my wife sleep in and I made breakfast. I'm like, I do that like every day. So what am I supposed to do?
Ah.
Wake up even earlier and make more breakfast? Like,
Uh-huh,
come on
uh-huh.
now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the boys, my one Aaron fell on the stairs, has a big goose egg on his forehead. That's
Yeah,
a nice happy Mother's Day.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take care of the kids and let my wife hang out. Hey, I take care of my kids all the time. So
So there.
what am I supposed to do now? Like, maybe I should just be a worse husband the rest of the year so I can up my game
You
on
can up your
this day.
game on Mother's Day.
Yeah,
You're funny.
it's really hard to be me. I didn't
Uh-huh.
realize
So hard.
it is.
Well, it's been a good Mother's Day. We are actually, I should say, we are actually recording on Mother's Day today. I
Hmm.
think maybe that was implied in the beginning, but this will release on Thursday, our regular time. So, um, I hope, obviously, you've come off the high of Mother's Day by the time you're listening to this. You're a couple days after. And I hope that if you had any sense of tension in your day, that maybe we put words to the tension that was Mother's Day for you. And if you didn't have tension and it was a great celebration, I'm glad. Like,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. That
Hmm.
is absolutely wonderful. So, all right, guys. I think that covers
I
it.
think that about covers it. All right, this is the part of the podcast where we recommend a book for this week.
Yes, and as a reminder, the intent is not necessarily to make this a book club or that you read every single book we suggest every week.
No, that'd be entirely too many books. All this is just coming from the fact that a lot of the conversations we've had and the conversations that we've wanted to share have come from books that we've read and topics that we enjoy. So with all the books out there, sometimes it's hard to choose what you like. So this is our contribution.
Yeah, and we generally hope that it ties in a little bit with the episode. All right, for this week's book, I wanted to recommend The Complicated Heart by Sarah May. I picked this book up in 2019, is what Amazon told me when I purchased it. And it was a powerful book to read. She explores the relationship that she had with her mom, and it was indeed a tumultuous one. Um, and I thought maybe reading from the book description, it mentions how do you forgive someone who carelessly brushed aside your pain, who caused such destruction, and who doesn't show remorse? How do you know when to stay and when to go? And then further down, it mentions if you've struggled with a difficult relationship, if you felt torn up and crazy and confused because of it, if you just want to know how to move forward and be okay, this story is for you. Dysfunction does not have to be your destiny or your identity. And I thought that uh, I think that's the beautiful part, right? That final part there. Dysfunction does not have to be your destiny or your identity. Um, there indeed are broken relationships all around us, whether we cause the brokenness or other people cause the brokenness. We struggle so much to love each other well, and we sort of absorb the hurt from someone and then we pass the hurt on to someone else. And there's a component for this book is about her and her mom, and her mother was an alcoholic. And she shares some pretty sad stories from that relationship. And she also gives some wonderful counseling information. And the thing that I took away from this read was the concept of um, the expectations, like the mourning the loss of the expectations of what you thought something should be. And I think that that is true for absolutely any expectation. I think it gets built up in our bodies when we have this thought and hope that we aspired something to be, right? Like this aspiration for an outcome, and then when it doesn't meet that expectation, how, like, wounding it is, and how, like, crummy we might feel from it. And there's the little things, right? There's, like, the little expectations that we might get mad or sad about, and then there's the bigger ones, like, the relational dynamics between a parent and a child, which, she explores in this book. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this book, The Complicated Heart by Sarah May. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you aren't already following us, please follow us on your Spotify or Apple Podcast account. And look us up on Instagram at nuance_beauty. Until next week.